Just a few years ago, on a perfect English summer day, my husband and I fulfilled a long-held ambition of mine, which was to visit one of the most beautiful and poignant memorials in the country. It's not far from where we live in the beauty of the Kent countryside. Tudorley Church is the only one in the entire world where every single window was designed by the Russian Jewish artist Marc Chagall. The blues and golds of the stained glass are especially stunning with the sunlight streaming through. But what had made this Russian Jewish artist choose to dedicate so much time and energy to a tiny English church so far off the beaten track that you could live your whole life in London, never know it existed? The story goes back to a member of West London Synagogue, Sir Henry Daviddor Goldsmith, part of the very same family who gave their name to our Goldsmith Hall. He inherited Summerhill in Kent and married Rosemary, who was an Anglican. They agreed to bring up their two daughters, Sarah and Chloe, in the Anglican tradition. And they had what seemed to be a charmed life, including visits to Paris, where Sarah expressed her admiration for Chagall. But in 1963, tragedy struck, and Sarah and two friends were drowned in a boating accident. Her parents were devastated by the loss of their beloved daughter and all the potential that would never be realised in her tragically brief life. But then they remembered her love of Chagall and got the great artist to make a memorial window in their local church. He was apparently so moved by the tragedy that he agreed to make replacements for every single window in the church. Most noticeable is the luminous blue, which for Chagall was apparently a symbol of enduring love. The baronetcy has died out. The Daviddor Goldsmith family no longer live at Summerhill, but the church is a place of pilgrimage for those who love Chagall and appreciate the memorial to enduring love that he created. For us, it was especially touching because of its link with West London Synagogue, where Sir Henry's memorial service took place. Sadly, Henry's remaining daughter, Chloe, had a very serious riding accident many years later, which nearly killed her. But by the strength of her own spirit and the support of her husband, James, she made a good recovery. More than that, they made a positive choice for a better future. They decided to make their land a haven for wildlife, including rare butterflies. The story of Tudorley Church and the contribution of the Daviddor Goldsmith family is about more than love and loss, though these are important themes in themselves. It is also about the extraordinary gift from God that gave them the courage to transform their sadness into something that was really life-enhancing and would continue to be so well into the future. The experience of those stained glass windows is a visceral one. It's possible to see Chagall's own thumbprints and scratches upon the glass. Working in stained glass is a complex and demanding process, but Chagall valued it profoundly, saying this: "For me, a stained glass window is a transparent partition between my heart and the heart of the world." I think we might add to that lovely description by saying that the stained glass at Tudorley brings light to the broken-hearted. The light came in through the genius of Chagall and the determination of the David Goldsmith family that something beautiful would come into the world through their own broken hearts. They, I am sure, would have understood from their own tragedy the Hasidic saying attributed to Menachem Mendel of Kotsk. He said this: "There is nothing as whole as a broken heart." Perhaps we might add to that statement that with God's help and a little self-awareness, the light can enter through the cracks of a broken heart. The Kotsker Rebbe was known for his witty and sometimes acerbic responses to questions asked from other people. One of his sayings has made it into our Yom Kippur prayer book. He asked a group of venerable visitors, "Where is the dwelling of God?" They laughed at him and responded, "What a thing to ask! Is not the whole world full of his glory?" Then the Kotsker Rebbe answered his own question. God dwells wherever we let him in. He, of course, had a deeper and more profound response, so appropriate for this most holy day of the Jewish year. God is everywhere. That is why we call God Hamakom, the all-present one. Even so, we have to open our hearts to let God in, and that is often most readily achievable via the cracks, the places where we feel broken-hearted. For some people, this year has been difficult because of illness or loss of loved ones. For others, the struggle has been to get beyond the pandemic and the restrictions we got used to over the past 3 years. If you are used to Zoom and feel unsafe in a crowd, then using the tube or sitting in a crowded synagogue just feels too stressful. But spare a thought for our teenagers and young adults whose whole life plans have been derailed by COVID and its impact. They all struggled through homeschooling, only for some to find their universities started with isolation in a bedroom. All the anticipated joy of Freshers' Week spoiled because of social distancing. For quite a number of people, life has never quite got back to norm. The social skills never quite properly retrieved, and school attendance a nightmare to be avoided, rather than a joyful way to reconnect with friends. A great deal of research has been done by organisations such as Mind on the long-term impact of the COVID experience on the mental health of teenagers and young adults. Their survey found 88% of their respondents, 88% found their mental health had deteriorated over this period. When asked by Mind how they cope with the changes and pressures they experienced during COVID, 75% said that going out into the natural world improved their mental health. More worryingly, 32% of young people found themselves self-harming as a way of coping, more than double the number of adults. For over 3/4 of adults and young people who responded to the survey, over or under-eating was a way to cope with the pandemic. It seems then that there are a lot of people out there in our community and the wider world who are feeling broken in some way by their experience of the pandemic. There is a lot of anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder out there in the world. But remember the wise words of the Kotsker Rebbe, there is nothing so whole as the broken-hearted. Perhaps then we can help people respond to the other great wisdom of the Kotsker Rebbe. God can be found wherever people let him in. So just maybe we can enable the light of healing to find a way into the hearts of those who are suffering. Just as the wonderful Chagall windows at Tudorley have brought spiritual consolation to those who've been heartbroken, decades after Sarah Davidoff Goldsmith died in that tragic boating accident. Bringing beauty into a place of sadness seems to have been a Goldsmith family tradition. Two of our stained glass windows up there are dedicated by Sophia Goldsmith in memory of her husband, Aaron. Her heartbreak inspired her in a project designed to let more beautiful light into this sanctuary. Those windows were dedicated in 1875, nearly a century and a half ago, and they are still bringing people together in a house of God whose beauty is enhanced by our stained glass windows. But can that same impulse to find healing from a place of brokenness still inspire this community in the 21st century, especially when we are struggling to get beyond the heartbreak suffered by so many during COVID? Well, I think we're blessed in this community to have an awareness that including those who feel broken, in whatever way, is a religious imperative. That is why we at West London are partnering with the Jewish Association for the Mentally Ill. They have committed to helping us teach our congregation what is often called mental health first aid, how to spot the signs early on of someone who's struggling with psychological pain. They will run sessions to teach us how to spot the signs of someone who might be exercising too much, or maybe wearing long sleeves in summer to hide signs of self-harm, or avoid social situations to avoid crippling anxiety. Post-pandemic, the epidemic of mental health problems means these sessions are more important than ever. Finding a safe space and sharing lived experience of mental health struggles with others is a very healing experience. Jamie will also help us launch a regular Wellbeing at W1 Cafe that will allow people to be heard in their moments of distress and to share their moments of joy as we traverse this new reality of the post-pandemic world. The beauty of this community is not only the sanctuary with its wonderful stained glass windows that bring a kaleidoscope of coloured lights into our sacred space. It is also the commitment to a community that is inclusive and nurturing, building awareness of how we can help each other through difficult times and help to heal the brokenhearted. As the Kotzker Rebbe said, God enters wherever we let him in. May this new year be a place where we welcome the light of the divine presence into our community and our hearts. Amen.